What would you do if speaking the truth could cost you your life? Imagine being a young university student in the middle of a brutal dictatorship where every word and every action is watched. Most people stay silent, but one young woman chose defiance. Her name was Sophie Scholl, and she became one of the most powerful voices of resistance against Nazi Germany. Her courage is remembered today as a symbol of moral strength, and her story is one that still inspires people around the world. Sophie was born in 1921 in the small town of Fürstenberg, Germany, into a family that valued education and integrity. Her father was outspoken in his criticism of the Nazi regime, and this shaped Sophie's early worldview. But like many young people of her time, she was initially drawn into the Hitler Youth, thinking it was just another way to be part of her community. Very quickly, though, she began to see the truth, the indoctrination, the lies, and the cruelty. Sophie was too thoughtful, too independent to blindly follow. By the time she began her studies at the University of Munich in 1942, Sophie had become part of a small circle of friends who were deeply disturbed by what the Nazis were doing, especially the endless war and the mass killings in occupied territories. Together with her brother Hans and several other students, she joined the group known as the White Rose. This wasn't an armed resistance. They didn't carry weapons. Instead, they fought with words, leaflets, letters and ideas, believing that spreading the truth was itself a form of resistance. The White Rose produced pamphlets that called on ordinary Germans to resist Hitler, to refuse blind obedience, and to recognize the crimes being committed in their name. These leaflets were written with extraordinary clarity and moral conviction. Sophie herself helped distribute them, sometimes leaving stacks in university hallways, sometimes mailing them to distant cities. It was dangerous, but she believed that silence in the face of injustice was a betrayal of humanity. In February 1943, Sophie and Hans carried a suitcase full of leaflets into the University of Munich. They placed them outside classrooms and lecture halls, knowing that students and professors would find them. As the halls grew quiet, Sophie made a bold decision. She walked to the top of a staircase and threw the remaining leaflets down into the atrium, watching them scatter through the air like snow. It was a breathtaking act of defiance, but it was also the moment that sealed her fate. A university janitor, loyal to the Nazis, spotted her and Hans, and within minutes they were arrested by the Gestapo. The siblings were interrogated for days. Sophie was only 21 years old, but her words during those interrogations showed astonishing bravery. When asked why she had opposed the regime, she calmly said that what they had done for their conscience, for the good of their people. She did not beg for mercy. She did not betray her friends. Just 4 days after their arrest, Sophie, Hans and their friend Christoph Probst were put on trial. The trial was a sham. There was no real defense, no real chance of acquittal. The infamous judge, Roland Freisler, shouted at them, calling them traitors. Sophie stood tall, replying with words that still echo across history. Somebody, after all, had to make a start. What we wrote and said is what many people are thinking. They just don't dare to say it out loud. On February 22, 1943, Sophie Scholl was executed by guillotine only hours after the trial ended. Witnesses said that she walked to her death with incredible calm. Her last words were simple but unforgettable. Such a fine, sunny day and I have to go. But what does my death matter if by our actions thousands are awakened and stirred to action? She was just 21 years old. The White Rose did not survive long as an organization. Most of its members were arrested or killed. But the words they wrote did not vanish. Copies of their leaflets were smuggled out of Germany and later dropped by Allied planes across Europe. Their message of conscience over fear, of truth over lies, lived on and became a symbol of resistance that outlasted the regime that tried to silence them. Today, Sophie Scholl is remembered not as a victim, but as a beacon of courage. Schools, streets, and even a prize for civic courage in Germany bear her name. Her story reminds us that even in the darkest times, a single voice can make a difference, and that moral courage is often found in the young who refuse to accept injustice as normal. When we look at Sophie's life, we are forced to ask ourselves hard questions. Would we have the strength to stand up as she did when the risks were so great? Would we have chosen silence or defiance? Sophie's story matters because it's not only about the past. It's about choices we all face in our own time, about when to speak and when to act. If you found Sophie Scholl's story inspiring, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more stories of courage, history and resilience. And if you want to keep learning, check out the next video on screen now. Thank you for watching. And remember, history isn't just about what happened. It's about the voices that refuse to be silenced.